At this very instant, somebody possessing less capability than yourself is claiming victory. What explains this phenomenon? Their demeanor radiates absolute assurance. Their communication flows without interruption or doubt. Their behavior suggests inherent entitlement to everything they pursue. The universe accepts their narrative as truth. During the same period, you remain frozen in contemplation. Your mind races through endless possibilities and scenarios. You anticipate the perfect instant, the ideal phrasing, the appropriate emotional state before taking action. While you remain paralyzed in analysis, another individual seizes opportunities that rightfully belonged within your grasp. Self-assurance represents more than merely a personality characteristic. It functions as strategic armament in life's battlefield. Those who refuse to wield this instrument will inevitably become victims of those who understand its devastating effectiveness. The philosopher understood this fundamental reality generations before our current era. Individuals demonstrating audacity advance rapidly through hierarchies regardless of their actual competencies or expertise. Those plagued by uncertainty remain perpetually stagnant despite possessing brilliant intellectual capabilities. To examine why boldness consistently defeats hesitation in dominant structures, subscribe to Dark Psychology Decoded and explore how unwavering confidence silently reshapes power dynamics. This presentation marks a critical juncture in your personal evolution. Its purpose transcends simple encouragement or providing comfortable reassurance. The objective centers entirely on seizing command of your destiny. You will acquire knowledge regarding the elimination of hesitancy from your behavioral patterns. You will master communication techniques resembling those employed by sovereign leaders. Your physical movements will embody the expectations of someone accustomed to immediate compliance from others. Observe these teachings with complete attention and focus. Moving forward from this moment, any manifestation of fragility within your character will receive zero tolerance or acceptance. Every weakness must face systematic replacement with formidable strength and undeniable presence. Your current state of vulnerability did not emerge from natural birth circumstances. External forces deliberately constructed this condition through systematic reinforcement over extended periods. Repetitive patterns, reward mechanisms, and societal regulations trained your psyche toward obedience and submission. These influences conditioned you to pursue validation from authority figures constantly. They programmed you to inquire perpetually whether your actions meet approval standards. The essence currently residing within your consciousness bears little resemblance to authentic masculine power. Instead, it reflects a domesticated servant mentality designed exclusively for pleasing others and accepting subordinate positions. This psychological framework operates like an obedient canine that recoils from criticism and waits endlessly for authorization before taking initiative. That internal dialogue constantly whispering doubts, generating excessive contemplation, and offering premature apologies before verbal expression begins. This voice does not represent your genuine nature. It manifests as the subservient aspect of your personality. Unless you systematically destroy this diminished self-conception, genuine liberation will remain perpetually beyond reach. The historical figure referenced earlier never communicated through whispers or tentative suggestions. He issued direct commands that expected immediate execution. He refused to delay action while awaiting universal comprehension from observers. He implemented decisions first, permitting others to adjust their understanding subsequently. He never requested authority or permission from established power structures. Instead, he forcefully claimed dominion because he recognized that individuals who make requests automatically disqualify themselves from deserving what they seek. Your metamorphosis initiates through deliberate reversal of ingrained behavioral patterns. Whenever instinct urges you toward making yourself smaller or less visible, consciously expand your presence instead. When impulses push you toward lengthy explanations or justifications, deliberately pause and maintain silence. When automatic reflexes generate apologetic responses, replace them with unwavering eye contact that communicates strength. Genuinely dangerous self-assurance never originates from feelings of preparedness or readiness. It emerges from executing actions that your timid inner servant would never dare attempt under any circumstances. Accelerate your walking pace beyond comfortable norms. Physically occupy more spatial territory in every environment you inhabit. Cease the habitual nodding gesture that signals agreement and submission. Eliminate the tendency to soften your vocal tones when addressing others. Articulate your thoughts as if each statement represents an irrevocable decision rather than a tentative suggestion open for debate. Self-confidence transcends being merely a temporary psychological state or fleeting mood. It constitutes a fundamental identity that defines your entire existence. This new identity becomes forged exclusively through active defiance and rebellion. The opposition does not target external circumstances or other individuals. Instead, it wages war against the diminished version of yourself that continues seeking servitude and approval. Therefore, embrace this primary principle governing your transformation process. If any element within your existence generates feelings of inadequacy or smallness, eliminate it completely without hesitation. Whether this element manifests as a recurring thought pattern, an established habit, or even a person occupying space in your life, destroy its influence immediately. If something triggers hesitation within your decision-making processes, confront it directly with aggressive determination. If any factor produces weakness in your character, deny it access to your consciousness. If any aspect of your personality attempts to cultivate likability from others, respond with contemptuous laughter. The surrounding world will continuously advocate for kindness, politeness, and pleasant demeanor as virtuous qualities. However, the strategic truth recognized by power theorists reveals a harsher reality. Agreeable individuals function merely as disposable instruments in the hands of others. They experience usage until their utility expires, then face discard and replacement without second thoughts. Genuinely powerful individuals never prioritize niceness or universal approval. Their actions demonstrate precision, measured calculation, deliberate control, and strategic thinking at every juncture. This transformation begins by massacring that diminutive voice within your psyche that continues begging desperately for social acceptance and validation. You require neither permission from authority figures nor validation from peer groups. Your needs reduce to a single essential element, the demonstrated willingness to become feared rather than loved. This fear should not primarily originate from others observing your actions. Instead, it must emerge from your former self, recognizing its complete annihilation. Once you successfully eliminate the servant mentality occupying your consciousness, the ruler archetype naturally awakens to claim its rightful dominance. Genuinely powerful individuals never announce their arrival through excessive noise or attention-seeking behavior. Their entrance generates impact through concentrated presence alone, not through vocal volume or verbal quantity, but through deliberate silence, absolute stillness, and penetrating observation. You do not require widespread recognition or universal popularity. Your sole requirement involves shifting the atmospheric energy within any space the precise instant you cross its threshold. This describes how individuals move when they possess complete ownership of their environment. Not because external voices confirm this ownership through explicit acknowledgement, but because their behavior consistently assumes this reality as self-evident truth. The strategist recognized this phenomenon within royal court dynamics centuries ago. The individuals wielding authentic control were not always those wearing crowns or holding official titles. Sometimes genuine power resided with the figure positioned in the corner who rarely contributed to conversations. However, when this individual finally spoke, every member of the royal assembly leaned forward attentively to absorb every syllable. Silence functions as the ultimate control mechanism. You might assume that constant talking establishes dominance over situations. This assumption contains fundamental error. Excessive communication merely renders you predictable and easily decoded. The quiet individual represents the genuine threat, because observers cannot determine the contents of their thoughts or anticipate their next move. Upon entering any room or gathering, never scan the environment seeking permission or approval signals. Avoid glancing around, nervously searching for acceptance indicators. Instead, observe carefully while absorbing available information. Allow others to rush frantically proving their worth and value while you calculate strategic advantage. Your physical posture communicates messages before your mouth produces a single word. Movement should occur slowly and deliberately, not because uncertainty clouds your judgment, but because urgency serves no purpose. Predatory animals never sprint unnecessarily unless the moment arrives for striking their target. Until that precise instant, they wait patiently with calm readiness. Most individuals never recognize how rapidly they move through space, how quickly they speak, or how frequently they interrupt others during conversations. These behaviors emerge because they desperately attempt impressing observers, because their position remains beneath someone else's judgment and evaluation. When you enter like someone possessing complete ownership, your speech never aims to impress or entertain. You speak exclusively to render decisions that others will implement. Every sentence you construct carries absolute finality. Each word sounds like an inarguable conclusion rather than an opening position. People begin listening differently to your communication. They abandon attempts at challenging your statements. Instead, they calibrate their own positions relative to yours. When others speak, you wait patiently rather than rushing to respond. You permit them to speak first, allowing them to reveal their hunger, their insecurities, their vulnerabilities. The individual who speaks first typically reveals what they fear most. Once you possess that knowledge, bending them to your will becomes a simple matter of applying appropriate pressure. You never chase energy or pursue approval from groups. Instead, you create gravitational force that pulls others into your orbit. Self-assurance at this sophisticated level bears no relationship to being liked or appreciated. It concerns making others question their own position simply through standing in proximity to your presence. Therefore, carry yourself as if victory already belongs to you. Not through arrogant displays or boastful declarations, but like someone who never competes because self-selection already occurred. If they respect you, acknowledge it neutrally. If they withhold respect, recognize that outcome as superior. Indifference toward approval represents the ultimate manifestation of power. If the room did not belong to you upon entry, by departure time they will remember it as your domain. Not because you demanded recognition, but because the necessity for demands never materialized. Words transcend being merely acoustic vibrations traveling through air. They constitute weapons capable of inflicting psychological damage or establishing dominance. Most individuals speak as if requesting permission simply to occupy physical space. You can identify them instantly through telltale signs: the rising intonation at sentence conclusions, the nervous laughter punctuating their statements, the endless filler words including I think, maybe, I am not sure, and similar hedging language. They communicate as if apologizing for consuming oxygen or requiring attention. This does not qualify as genuine speech. It represents self-inflicted sabotage. The strategist understood the fundamental truth. Power does not always reside in the content of your message, but rather in the delivery method you employ. When you speak with tone suggesting denial remains impossible, people abandon analysis of your words. They submit to the overwhelming weight of your certainty. The underlying game operates on emotional rather than logical principles. People do not follow truth or factual accuracy. They follow conviction and demonstrated confidence. If your voice sounds absolutely certain, observers assume correctness automatically. If hesitation colors your delivery, they assume your ideas lack merit or consideration. What characteristics define a strategically powerful voice? It flows slowly, maintains calmness, and communicates finality. You speak as if your words are not available for debate or discussion, as if each sentence represents an official decree. You speak like someone who already expects obedience as the natural response. The expertise level within a room becomes irrelevant. If you sound like a concluded decision, others will defer to your judgment. The primary rule states this clearly. Sound like the ending, not the beginning. Most people never receive this crucial information. You do not need to speak frequently to earn respect. Actually, the more you say, the more opportunities you provide others to decode your patterns, challenge your positions, or worse, stop fearing your presence. Speak less frequently, but mean more with each utterance. When you do speak, eliminate all softness from your communication. No filler language, no explanations, no apologies. Never say phrases like, I am just saying, I could be wrong, or I do not know if this makes sense. But these represent escape mechanisms for the weak. Burn them completely. State your meaning and let the statement stand alone. Let others deal with the silence that follows. Eventually, these individuals abandon their attempts at controlling your actions because they discover something absolutely frightening. You represent the singular person they cannot influence or sway. This constitutes the ultimate evolution. Not physical bearing, not verbal delivery, not external aesthetics, but fundamental essence. Others no longer mold your character. You determine the atmosphere. You establish the regulations. You dictate the final results. Understanding from others becomes unnecessary. Acceptance holds no value. You require absolutely nothing from anyone because your existence now answers to nobody. This independence renders you completely impervious to attack. When weak individuals experience dismissal, they perceive it as injury. For those commanding power, it functions as information, a blessing, a communication from reality stating you remained too accessible, too transparent, too eager. Excellent. Now you understand precisely what requires elimination. Comprehend this fundamental principle. Dismissal never targets you personally. It reflects positioning. Individuals reject whatever they believe their survival can proceed without. Therefore, when they declined your offer, Their belief system concluded they sacrificed nothing of importance. This does not constitute offense. This represents intelligence gathering. Now you possess knowledge regarding their stance and your current location. This awareness permits strategic repositioning to retaliate later when their vulnerability increases while your status becomes unreachable. Initial action requires displaying zero emotional impact. The instant you reveal suffering, victory belongs to them. The concern transcends them entirely. Your reputation stands at stake. A strategically calculating consciousness never panics when opportunities close. It makes the environment more hostile. You did not experience rejection. They lost authorization to reach you. Dismissal only materializes when you grant it recognition. Therefore, you provide no reaction. You transform instead. Secondary action involves removing your presence like strategic armament. What occurs when something previously assumed as permanent suddenly vanishes? You begin sensing its significance, its worth. This precisely describes your response to dismissal. Disappear completely. No justifications, no sentimental goodbyes, merely calculated unavailability. While they experience the emptiness, you construct improvements. The philosopher declared, individuals should receive either generous treatment or complete destruction because they seek vengeance for minor offenses but cannot retaliate against severe ones. Therefore, avoid harming them. Render them insignificant. Make your quiet more thunderous than your communication. Make them question your location, your advancement distance, and whether they ever possess genuine connection to you whatsoever. Third action demands reframing the situation. Dismissal only possesses influence if circumstances suggest you pursued something unsuccessfully. Therefore, reconstruct the account not for their benefit, but for your own understanding. You did not face rejection. You removed yourself from a competition too limited for your capabilities. You permitted their refusal because you were examining their conduct. You granted them singular opportunity to demonstrate they possessed the judgment to acknowledge power. They experienced failure. Within that failure, they revealed everything requiring your awareness. Now you vanish and enhance yourself. Fourth action converts dismissal into dominance. Here victory manifests. Dismissal provides clarity. Most individuals exist within confusion, never knowing who truly respects them, who exploits them, who fears them. However, dismissal penetrates that obscurity like sharp steel. Now you identify who lacks vision. Now you recognize where your influence currently holds no impact. Therefore, what action follows? You polish your advantage. You intensify your presentation. You magnify your worth so dramatically that individuals who previously overlooked you now must justify themselves when mentioning your identity. When they eventually return, and they absolutely will, you need not even dismiss them. You have already progressed beyond their accessibility. This represents control. Quiet, lasting, refined. Fifth action weaponizes your resurgence. The objective never involves vengeance. Revenge stems from emotion. Strategic power always operates through calculation. Therefore, you never attempt retaliating against anyone. You permit time to manage that responsibility for you. You reappear exclusively when your presence generates awkwardness. When your achievements become so evident, they cannot escape noticing. When the individual who dismissed you now observes you controlling the precise territory they believed you did not belong within, you communicate nothing. You provide no bitterness, no mockery, no pride. You offer a brief acknowledgement, or superior still, no acknowledgement whatsoever, because now you are not attempting to gain acceptance. You are establishing the benchmark. Concluding statement: dismissal does not equal loss. It functions as the examination, the selection process, the flames that demonstrate what requires coldness, what requires severing, and who requires abandonment. Therefore, remember this truth clearly. You did not experience rejection. You were guided toward a manifestation of yourself that never requests repeatedly, never trembles, and never waits for selection. Now construct silently and emerge as energy they cannot dismiss regardless of desire. Your reconstruction is complete, not through inspiration, not through encouragement. Rebuilt from internal foundations outward, you eliminated self-questioning, not through positive statements but through implementation. You refused waiting until feelings confirmed readiness. You progressed. You executed, and you discovered that authority never belongs to the flawless. It belongs to the courageous who dare act despite uncertainty and fear of potential consequences ahead. You transformed dismissal into propulsion that drives your entire existence forward. The desperate pursuit of validation from others has permanently ceased. Now you permit individuals to experience the genuine expense of forfeiting access to your presence. You evolved into something rare, calculated, and wordless, and they definitely perceived this shift. You discontinued entering environments seeking acceptance or permission. Now you claim ownership through concentrated presence, deliberate physical bearing, and exact execution of every movement. You no longer articulate thoughts hoping someone might listen. You communicate as though nobody possesses sufficient standing to challenge your declarations. Most importantly, you reconstructed your fundamental nature completely. You cannot be predicted anymore. You refuse to be easily influenced or manipulated. You have ascended to unreachable status, emotionally impervious to external forces. They lack capability to provoke reactions from you. They cannot seduce you with temptations. They cannot disturb your equilibrium, because your allegiance belongs to nobody at this moment. This quality renders you impossible to erase from memory. This creates mythical status that transcends ordinary achievement. Not through volume, not through celebrity status, but through commanding quietness, frigid mental precision, merciless behavioral consistency across all situations. You require no announcement regarding your metamorphosis. They will detect it within your stride, embedded in your vocal inflections, present in your calculated absences. You have transformed into the individual people study silently from distance. The person who previously pursued others now finds himself pursued instead. The individual who formerly requested permission now renders final judgments. The man who previously required approval has become the measurement standard against which others evaluate themselves. Therefore, understand this clearly. This journey never concerned simple self-assurance. This represented the conquest of dominance across 3 dimensions: intellectual, emotional, and psychological territories. Your purpose here never involved conforming to existing structures. Your mission demands moving the strategic elements, warping the environment to your specifications, haunting their consciousness perpetually, even during complete silence. Legends refuse to plead for consideration. They never justify their existence or decisions. They simply exist authentically, and reality reorganizes itself to accommodate their presence. Ultimate directive follows now. Acknowledge this presentation if you have finished pursuing validation desperately. Commit to following if preparedness exists within you to become the category of individual they cannot govern, cannot anticipate accurately, and will never succeed in forgetting regardless of effort. Because this transcends self-improvement philosophies entirely. This constitutes warfare of the highest order, and you just transformed yourself into formidable weaponry designed for victory. The rejection you absorbed previously now functions as combustible material, igniting your ascension trajectory. Every dismissal you encountered became converted into energy propelling you beyond previous limitations. The pathetic behavior of seeking approval from crowds has been permanently eradicated from your operating system. Now you engineer situations where people comprehend the actual cost of losing your attention, your energy, your respect. You became deliberately scarce, appearing only when strategic advantage exists. You became methodically strategic, calculating every decision before implementation. You became profoundly silent, understanding that words lose power through overuse, and their observation confirmed your evolution immediately. You stopped crossing thresholds hoping for acceptance or warm reception. Now you dominate these spaces through sheer presence that commands attention, through posture that communicates unquestionable authority, through precision in every gesture and word. You abandon speaking merely to be acknowledged or understood. You articulate ideas as if contradiction represents financial expense nobody can afford. Above everything else, you systematically rewired your core identity at the deepest level. Predictability has been surgically removed from your behavioral patterns. You can no longer be moved easily by external circumstances or emotional manipulation. You achieved unreachable status, positioned beyond emotional vulnerability or psychological warfare. They possess zero capacity to provoke emotional responses from you anymore. They cannot tempt you with hollow promises or superficial rewards. They cannot shake your foundation or disturb your mental fortress because your loyalty and commitment belong to nobody except your own mission now. This independence makes you absolutely unforgettable in their consciousness. This quality manufactures legendary status that persists across time, not through creating noise or disturbance, not through pursuing fame or recognition, but through wielding powerful silence strategically, maintaining cold clarity and judgment, demonstrating ruthless consistency in all actions regardless of audience or circumstance. You need not broadcast your transformation through public announcements or declarations. They will sense it radiating from your walking patterns, resonating through your tonal qualities, manifesting through your strategic absences that create vacuum and curiosity. You have become the individual people observe quietly from safe distances, studying your movements and decisions. The person who used to chase opportunities and people now finds himself being chased instead. The individual who used to ask questions and seek permission now makes decisive judgments that others follow. The man who previously required approval and validation from external sources has become the standard measurement, the benchmark against which others evaluate their own worth and position. Therefore, recognize clearly this entire process never centered on simple confidence building or positive thinking. This represented the systematic acquisition of dominance across multiple dimensions, specifically mental territory, emotional landscape, and psychological warfare. Your presence here on this planet never aimed toward fitting into pre-existing structures or conforming to established norms. Your purpose demands moving the strategic pieces on life's chessboard, bending entire rooms and environments to your invisible will, haunting their memories and thoughts permanently, even during your complete silence and absence. Legendary figures refuse to beg for consideration or attention from anyone. They never explain their decisions or justify their existence to critics or observers. They simply exist with complete authenticity, and the surrounding world reorganizes its structure to accommodate their undeniable presence. Final command follows immediately. Acknowledge this presentation if you have completed the phase of chasing approval desperately from others. Make commitment to subscribe if genuine preparedness exists within you, to evolve into the category of individual they cannot control through manipulation, cannot predict through pattern recognition, and will never manage to forget regardless of conscious effort or desire, because this material transcends typical self-help content completely. This constitutes actual warfare conducted on psychological and strategic battlegrounds. And you just completed transformation into formidable weaponry specifically designed and calibrated for achieving total victory.